what if the biggest thing destroying your future isn't failure, but stress you've learned to normalize? Every day, millions of people wake up exhausted, distracted, emotionally numb, and mentally overwhelmed, yet they still call it being productive. But your brain doesn't see it that way. Your brain sees stress as survival. And the longer you stay trapped in that survival mode, the more it silently rewires the way you think, feel, react, love, decide, and live. Stress is no longer just an emotion. It has become an identity. People wear burnout like a badge of honor while their focus collapses, relationships weaken, confidence disappears, and purpose slowly fades into noise. The terrifying part is this. Most people don't even realize it's happening until they no longer recognize themselves, because chronic stress doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. It steals your patience before it steals your peace. It steals your clarity before it steals your ambition. And eventually it convinces you that surviving is the same thing as living. But the human brain was never designed to stay under constant pressure. It was built for moments of danger, not a lifetime of notifications. Example: citations, comparisons, financial pressure, emotional suppression, and endless mental noise. And when the brain is overloaded for too long, it begins to protect you in dangerous ways. Overthinking, procrastination, emotional detachment, anger, anxiety, addiction, self-sabotage, and even the inability to feel joy. This is the conversation nobody is having. Not the surface level advice, not the fake motivation. The real truth about what stress is doing to your mind behind the scenes and why understanding it may be the difference between losing yourself and taking your life back before it's too late. Your brain was designed to protect you from predators, not permanent pressure. But the modern man wakes up every day as if he's under attack: financial stress, emotional expectations, competition, rejection, social comparison, and the silent fear of falling behind. The problem is that the brain cannot fully distinguish between a real physical threat and the emotional pressure created by modern life. To your nervous system, an unpaid bill, a disrespectful comment, relationship tension, or the fear of failure can trigger the same survival response as danger once did in the wild. And when AM lives in that state long enough, he stops responding with clarity and starts reacting from exhaustion. Men are often taught to suppress stress instead of understanding it. From a young age, many learn that vulnerability looks weak, silence looks strong, and emotional control means emotional denial. Women often experience the consequences of this without realizing the internal battle causing it. They may see emotional distance, irritability, lack of communication, or sudden withdrawal, while underneath it is often a brain overloaded by constant survival mode. A stressed man may not lose his intelligence first, he loses his patience, presence, emotional awareness, and ability to feel safe enough to connect, because survival-focused brains are built to protect, not to bond. Stress rarely destroys a man in one dramatic moment. It changes him quietly, one reaction at a time. At first it looks harmless: less sleep, shorter patience, constant distraction, emotional numbness, difficulty focusing. But the brain adapts to whatever environment it experiences repeatedly. When stress becomes daily, the mind begins to rewire itself around survival instead of growth. A man who once felt motivated, Ed starts feeling emotionally exhausted without understanding why. His brain becomes trained to expect pressure everywhere, which slowly changes the way he thinks, communicates, trusts, and responds to the people around him. What makes this dangerous is how invisible the transformation can appear from the outside. Women often notice the emotional distance before men notice the internal damage themselves. A man under chronic stress may become quieter, colder, more defensive, or emotionally unavailable, not because he no longer cares, but because his brain has shifted into protection mode. The overwhelmed mind starts conserving energy by disconnecting from vulnerability, intimacy, and reflection. Over time, stress conditions men to believe they must carry everything alone, even while silently craving understanding and emotional safety. The tragedy is that many relationships begin breaking long before anyone realizes the real enemy was an exhausted nervous system constantly preparing for a threat that never leaves. The modern world benefits when your mind is too exhausted to think clearly. A distracted man is easier to control, easier to manipulate, and easier to keep chasing things never truly fulfill him. Every day, men are surrounded by systems designed to keep their attention overloaded. Constant notifications, endless comparison, pressure to succeed faster, look stronger, earn more, and never slow down. The brain was never built to process this level of stimulation without consequences. Yet many men confuse mental exhaustion with ambition, believing burnout is proof of hard work while their emotional health quietly collapses underneath the surface. What makes this even more painful is how stress changes the way men relate to the people they love. Women often want emotional presence, attention, and connection, while many men are mentally trapped in survival mode, constantly fighting invisible pressure inside their own minds. Instead of feeling supported, stressed men often feel evaluated by the world around them, as though their worth depends entirely on performance. Over time, exhaustion creates emotional disconnection. Conversations become shorter, patience becomes weaker, and intimacy starts feeling like another responsibility instead of a source of peace. A brain constantly flooded with stress chemicals begins prioritizing escape over connection. I am why so many men slowly lose themselves while appearing functional on the outside. Overthinking is not always a lack of confidence. Sometimes it is a brain trying desperately to protect itself from pain. When a man experiences prolonged stress, disappointment, pressure, or emotional suppression, his mind becomes hyperalert to possible threats. Every decision feels heavier, every conversation gets replayed, every mistake feels dangerous, and every uncertain future becomes a mental battlefield. The brain starts scanning for problems even when none exist, because survival-focused minds are trained to expect danger. What looks like hesitation on the outside is often exhaustion and fear colliding internally. Men are rarely taught how to process emotions in healthy ways. So many turn inward and become prisoners of their own thoughts. Women often notice this as emotional distance, indecisiveness, or withdrawal, without realizing the man may be fighting constant mental noise behind the scenes. A stressed brain struggles to relax because it believes staying alert is the only way to stay safe. This is why some men cannot fully enjoy success, peace, or even love without expecting something to go wrong. Overthinking slowly steals presence from relationships because the body may be in the room, but the mind is trapped in survival mode, analyzing, preparing, and defending against threats that may never happen, while emotional connection quietly fades under the weight of constant internal pressure. The people who say "I'm fine" the fastest are often carrying the heaviest mental weight. Some of the most emotionally overwhelmed men are the ones who continue showing up every day without complaint. They go to work, pay the bills, answer messages, smile in public, and keep functioning while silently fighting exhaustion inside their own minds. Modern culture rewards men for endurance, not emotional honesty. Many are taught that their value comes from what they provide, not what they feel. So instead of expressing stress, they learn how to hide it behind routine, humor, silence, or constant busyness. The brain adapts to this pressure by normalizing survival mode until emotional exhaustion starts feeling like personality. What makes this dangerous is that emotional overload rarely looks dramatic in men at first. Women often expect stress to appear as visible sadness or emodio. Now vulnerability, but many men express pain differently. It can appear as irritability, emotional withdrawal, numbness, lack of affection, shorter patience, or becoming consumed by work and distraction. The problem is not always that he no longer cares. Sometimes his nervous system is simply overwhelmed. A brain under chronic stress begins conserving emotional energy, and connection becomes harder even when love still exists underneath the surface. The hardest battles are often invisible because stressed men are conditioned to suffer quietly. Many fear that opening up will make them look weak, incapable, or less respected, especially in relationships where they already feel pressured to stay strong. So they continue carrying emotional weight in silence while their minds slowly disconnect from peace, clarity, intimacy, and even their own identity. Healing begins the moment a man realizes that constant stress is not proof of importance. Modern culture has trained people to admire exhaustion as if burnout were a symbol of ambition and emotional suffering were the price of success. Men especially grow up believing they must always carry more, suppress more, endure more, and complain little. S. The problem is that the brain does not reward endless pressure forever. A nervous system trapped in survival mode eventually starts sacrificing clarity, emotional stability, patience, focus, and connection just to keep functioning. What many men call discipline is sometimes untreated stress wearing the mask of productivity. The dangerous part is how deeply this mindset affects relationships. Women often admire hardworking, dependable men, but many do not see the invisible emotional cost behind the performance. A stressed man may still provide financially while becoming mentally absent in every other way. He may stop communicating openly, stop expressing affection naturally, or lose the emotional presence that relationships need to survive. The brain under chronic pressure prioritizes protection over intimacy. Instead of feeling emotionally safe, many men begin feeling like machines whose worth depends entirely on how much they can tolerate before breaking. Real healing starts when stress is no longer treated like a personality trait. Strong men are not the ones who ignore their mental exhaustion. The longest they are the ones willing to understand it before it destroys them. From the inside. A healthy brain needs recovery, silence, purpose, connection, and emotional honesty in the same way the body needs rest after physical labor. Women also play a powerful role in this process because emotional safety changes how the male brain responds to pressure. Men often heal faster in environments where they feel respected without constantly feeling evaluated, judged, or emotionally punished for vulnerability.